Hit it, Phil.
Can it be the breeze that fills the trees with rare and magic perfume? Oh, no, it isn't the breeze, it's Jackson time. La, da, da, da.
Stay tuned.
Right after this episode.
For our discussion.
The Jack Benny Program. Second shift. Second shift. Oh, these plates go on the top shelf. Now look what you've done. That's the third dish you've dropped this week. You are, without a doubt, the clumsiest.
Rochester.
Uh-oh. Are you going to get it now?
Rochester, have you seen the second section of... Well, I don't blame you for not being able to face me.
Boss, why don't you give up trying to teach her to help with the dishes?
She's got to do something to earn her keep.
Well, you taught her to scratch your back. That ought to be enough. Uh-oh, I'll get it.
Overhill locomotive, 37 1/4. Atlas cotton, 18 7/8. National needlework, 22 1/2. Addison builders, 15 1/8. 15 1/8. Yeah, that sounds pretty high. I wonder what the price was yesterday.
14 1/4.
Holly, how would you know it? Oh, yes, I put yesterday's paper in the bottom of your cage. The open air mining up 2 1/2. Pittsburgh gravel down 1.
Here's your producer.
Hello, Joe. Come on in, sit down, have some coffee.
No, thanks. Boy, have we got problems. Why did I ever get into show business anyway?
What are you worried about? We rehearse next week's show. Everything is great.
That's what you think. The sponsor just called and says he doesn't like the script. So we have to find a new one.
We can't find a new script at this late date. We'd have to start all over again. Anyway, with a live show, you have to be right on schedule. You know, 4 days for production, 3 days for rehearsals.
And 2 days to mix the batter for your makeup.
Certainly. Well, Jack, let's not waste time. Where are those scripts we've been saving for future shows?
In the den.
Well, come on, let's take a look at them.
Okay. I don't know. Ooh. I'll have to cut Polly's nails. I don't know what to do.
Wait a minute. I think I've got one. It's a musical, something we've never done before.
A musical?
And what a story. I remember the whole thing, Jack. You're a theatrical agent, and you've only got 2 clients who are dancers, a boy and a girl, but they're not getting anyplace. So you decide to team them up. And from that moment on, the 3 of you make a fortune.
Hey, that sounds pretty good. You know, a musical on my television show would be something different.
Jack, you can't miss with this. You know, I remember Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire once did a musical with practically the same background.
Well, then we have... Wait a minute. You just said something.
What did I say? What?
That's who we'll get. Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire. The public would love to see them back together again.
That's a great idea. I'll put in a call right now.
Wait a minute. You can't call people like that. I'll go over and talk to Ginger Rogers personally. She's a very, very good friend of mine.
Well, good. While you're talking to Ginger, I'll try and get hold of Fred Astaire.
Fine.
I got his
Let's
address
go.
here somewhere.
Okay. How do you do? I'm Jack Benny. I'd like to speak to Miss Ginger Rogers, please.
Oh, yes, sir, but she's busy just now.
Well, it's quite important that I talk to her. Do you mind if I wait?
Very well, sir. Come in.
Thank you.
Make yourself comfortable, sir. I'll tell Miss Rogers you're here.
Thank you. magazines, no candy. Magazines I can get in my doctor's office.
Yes, Irma. Oh. I just can't make up my mind which dress to wear tonight.
Miss Rogers, Mr. Jack Benny's here to see you.
Jack Benny? Oh, did he say what he wanted?
No, ma'am. But he seems quite determined to see you.
Oh, well, I wonder... Oh, my goodness. You don't suppose he's heard about the party I'm giving tonight?
You mean he hasn't been invited?
No. Oh, he's nice enough. It's just that when other men come to parties, they bring their wives or their girlfriends, but he always brings his violin. And the last time I invited him, he insisted upon playing it, and everybody left before the party even got started.
Oh, that lovely food gone to waste.
Oh, it didn't go to waste. He stayed and ate it. But maybe I'm jumping to conclusions. There is a chance he hasn't found out about the party tonight. I think I'd better go down and see what he wants. Thank you. Jack!
Oh, Ginger.
My, this is an unexpected pleasure.
Thank you.
You were in the neighborhood and you just dropped in, huh?
Well, no, not exactly. I made a special trip to see you because I had to see you before tonight.
Tonight?
Yes. Yes, now, this is very important to me. You know, I cannot understand why...
Jack, could I fix you a drink?
No, thank you. Now, Ginger, you and I have been friends for, a long time, so let's get right down to the point. Now, I cannot understand why...
Jack, have a piece of candy.
What a sneaky way to hide it.
Well, go on, have some, Jack.
Ginger, really, I'm too excited to eat. Now, the reason I came down here is because, I cannot understand why you and I have never appeared on television together.
Is that what you came to see me for?
Well, certainly. What did you think I wanted?
Oh, well, I thought... Well, you see... Oh, come on, Jack, sit down. Now, what was it you wanted me to do?
Well, I want you to be a guest star on my television show.
Ah.
And I have a script. Well, it's the most wonderful idea for you and Fred Astaire.
Oh, my, that does sound interesting. You know, Fred and I haven't worked together for a long time.
Well, that's the whole idea. And, Ginger, because we're pressed for time, we do have to start rehearsing tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock in the morning?
See, you can get to bed early tonight and then be all set to go. You haven't anything to do this evening, have you?
No. Oh, no.
Good. Well, then, let me give you an idea of the story. It's absolutely wonderful. Now, I play the part of a broken-down theatrical agent. I haven't even enough money to pay my office rent. Now, I only have 2 clients, and they're both dancers.
How do you do?
See, and they don't know each other. Now, you, naturally, the girl, Fred is the boy.
Oh, yes, come
Now,
right
I
in.
introduce you to each other. And just when you become a great big success, I find out that...
I'm expecting a couple of relatives from the East to dinner. My Aunt Virginia and her husband.
Oh. Well, after you and Fred become a big success, see, you're just about to split up because...
Aunt Virginia's a big eater.
Now, let me show you the wonderful way that we start this show. Now, we open with a sensational dance number by you right at the height of your career. And then we show a flashback. See, we go way back to how it all happened.
Jack.
Don't tell me. Your uncle is a juggler.
Yes.
Well, how about it, Ginger? Will you do it?
Well, it certainly sounds good to me.
Fine. And all you have to do is sign this contract right here.
Oh, but
I
but
spoke to
Jack...
your agent, and this is your established salary. Everything's okay. Don't worry, that's my standard contract. Is there something wrong?
Well, I don't know. It's written in Latin.
My lawyer went to medical school.
All right, Jack, I'll take your word for it.
There we are. Everything's all set. And, Ginger, I'll see you tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock for rehearsal, huh?
All right, Jack, I'll be there.
Good. Whoops. Your Aunt Virginia and her husband?
They're bringing their children.
Well, I'll see you in the morning. Eh?
Goodbye, Jack.
Bye.
Boss, you've been pacing the floor for 15 minutes. Why don't you sit down and relax?
How can I relax? I've got Ginger Rogers all set, and I don't hear from Joe. If he hasn't got Fred Astaire, I don't know what we'll do. Maybe that's him. Hello?
Excuse me, sir. This will only take a moment
Look,
of your time.
will you call me back later, please? I don't want the line all tied up. Joe's going to call me later.
Oh, yes.
Well, all right, make it. Jack! Joe, I'm in here. Now, look, don't leave me in suspense. Did you get Fred Astaire?
Relax, relax. I got him.
Did you tell him about rehearsal?
Well, no, he won't be at rehearsal tomorrow. You see, I caught him just as he was leaving for New York.
I know, but what do we... We're doing the show in 2 days.
Now, Jack, you've got nothing to worry about. Fred said he wanted to do the same dance he did with Ginger in Top Hat. So if you'll do that routine, there won't be any need for rehearsing, and Fred will be back in time for the show.
Well, as long as he makes it. Look, you go to the studio, and I'll see you there in 15 minutes.
Hello? Hello?
What television show are you watching?
What show are we watching? We're not watching any show. We're trying to get one on.
Who is it? Come in.
Your agent.
Oh, it's you, Jack.
How do you like my tie? When I play a part, I throw myself into it. Well, I think we've got a great show. The last rehearsal went fine.
Well, it did seem a little funny rehearsing without Fred. Is he here yet?
No, but he'll be here. I checked the airport. His flight came in about an hour ago. He should be here any minute. How do you feel? Are you nervous?
A little bit. After all, this is a live show, and I'm used to films.
Well, don't let it bother you. You know, there's an old tradition in the theater. If you're not nervous, you're not a true artist.
Really? How do you feel?
I'm a wreck. Well, see you later.
Okay, Jack. Oh, this earring will coming off all the time.
Hey, fix me up a little bit, will you, please?
Jack, I just got this telegram.
Yeah?
It's from Fred Astaire. He's still in Chicago. His plane's been grounded.
Oh, no. Well, the show goes on in a few minutes. What are we going to do?
Well, there's only one thing to do. Cut the dance number.
I guess that's the only thing. Well, look, I'll get in touch with Malin Merrick, the musical conductor, and you tell Ginger that the dance is out.
Right. Ginger? Ginger? Oh, where is she? Have you seen Ginger Rogers?
I think she's in the dressing room.
No, I just looked there. Have you seen Miss Rogers?
She was in that phone booth just a moment ago.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, Joe! Did you tell Ginger?
I'm still looking for her. You better help me find her.
I can't even find Malin.
Well, I'll look over on this side. Little less amber, Pete.
Yes, sir.
Hey, where's Malin Merrick?
He's in the orchestra pit.
Everybody on stage. Everybody on stage.
Oh, for heaven's sake, we're on. Oh, my goodness, there's the music.
We got a date for this evening. evening with a star who could light up the sky. She's
Ginger! Ginger!
Music. She's the lover for losing and no one to let out a sigh. So here is our date for tonight.
I've got a date for this evening with a star that I met on the screen. My partner in dance, my flaming romance. You surely must know who I mean.
Who, me?
We're going stepping this evening, and it's hard to control my delight. He's smooth, he's gallant. He's a gay bon vivant who still has my heart taking flight as I wait for my date for tonight.
Jack, not so tight.
gentlemen, before I present my guest star again, I would like to clear something up because, well, I don't like to fool anybody. Of course, I'm referring to the dance sequence that you just saw. Naturally, those intricate steps had to be done by an extremely good dancer. You know, someone young, nimble, and agile. So I'd like to have the man who doubled for me come out and take a bow. Big show off. And now may I present my guest star, Miss Ginger Rogers. Ginger, I want to tell you what a great pleasure it was having you on my show.
Well, thank you, Jack. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, I enjoyed it, too. You know, you may not know this, but when I was younger, I did quite a bit of dancing. As a matter of fact, I entered a contest once, and my partner and I won first prize. You wouldn't believe that, would you?
Yes, I would, Jack. My mother still has the cup.
It's not what you think, folks. I sold it to her. Anyway, Ginger, let me thank you once again for being with me.
Thank you, Jack. I have a little confession I'd like to make.
Confession? What's that?
Well, you remember the other day when you came over to my house?
Yeah?
Well, I was giving a party that night, and I didn't invite you.
Oh, well, that's all right. I wouldn't have come anyway.
You wouldn't?
Oh, you see, I made it a policy never to go to any parties that I cater.
Jack, my party was catered by Francois caterers. Or when I talked to them on the phone, I talked to Mr. Francois himself.
Oui, oui. I remember the conversation. Well, Ginger, before you leave, may I ask you something?
Yes, Jack, what is it?
Well, the show is over now, and I thought maybe we could have dinner together, maybe spend part of the evening, you know.
Well, Jack, I'd love to, but I can't.
Why not?
Well, it just so happens that I have a date tonight with somebody else. As a matter of fact, he's waiting for me now.
Oh. Well, it was just a thought, you know. Some other time.
Jack.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Goodbye, Ginger. She got that I haven't got. Oh, well. Good night, folks. I'll see you soon.
Well, hello again. This is Buck Benny speaking. I am joined by John Henderson from This Day in
Hello.
Jack Benny. Hey, John. I'm joined by Kathy Fuller-Seeley, author of so many wonderful Jack Benny books, and with a new one working the 4th volume on its way at some point in the future. But that's awesome. At least starting in the starting position on that. And the amazing Terry Phillips from Imagine Air Theater. And speaking of Imaginary Theater, I know that you're doing a live thing coming up here where you're going to do some of the episodes put together, which I would love to see. But where is that going to be? First, do you know yet? And second, do you have any new episodes that are going to be coming out anytime in the near future?
Yes and yes.
Good and good. Great.
The live presentation will actually be a staged reading, not a full-blown play, but we're developing a staged version of Imaginary Theater, kind of in the mold of old-time radio shows. So it's behind the scenes with an episode embedded in it. And that'll be at the Bakersfield Community Theater in January. And then I'm hoping that sometime next month, the first new episode of the podcast will come out, and it's called Automated Airlines, and it's about the first airline company with no crew, no pilots, no cabin flight attendants, no humans involved.
And I
they
assume that one's got to be a humorous episode.
Well, we'll see.
Okay.
Ah.
The slogan is "What could go wrong?"
What?
We shall find out.
Yes.
And that, as I said, I'm hoping will come out before the end of October.
I will say, of all your taglines and all your episodes and everything, I think this is the one I'm most excited about because it just sounds like a really cool concept. So
A great concept, yeah.
And a great concept to get across in like you say, one sentence or something.
Totally.
Yeah, that's great. So let's go with this episode. This is the Ginger Rogers is appearing with Jack, and we're delighted to be able to present it to you. It is in the syndication package, so the pictures, we got a pretty decent picture on this one for sure compared to our last one. It's a big upgrade. And let's start with Kathy. What were your thoughts on this one?
Well, I think it's a beautiful episode. And Daryl, you had mentioned that you see in it a template for how Jack and his a group would approach the sitcom-y like aspects of when he produces like 35 episodes a year. That if he leans more toward some combination of domestic life and a guest star.
Yes.
And this one, for starting with Polly having to put, Rochester in the kitchen with Polly, to start so small and domestic and to end so spectacularly is quite the journey. I'd just like to note that they had shot this back in late January 57 for it to be broadcast in November. So they really had taken the time to do this one. It had to be produced in 7 days. So
that's what's so amazing with the filmed episodes, just how long the gestation period was so often for them. So often we're seeing them, usually a television show, they're creating it. You're seeing something they created the week before or a couple weeks earlier or something. With Jack's show, it sometimes would be 7 months, 8 months
and
later.
yet that's where he was doing so many different things.
Yes.
He making these trips to Europe to, play before the Queen, being, traveling live. He was so busy starting to do his concerts. Yes. So trying to fit all this stuff into his busy life, I think is kind of interesting. And then snagging a top movie star. Right. I wasn't quite sure if this was Ginger's first appearance on television or not. She was immediate, she would have never, she was all about, promoting Ginger. So I don't think she would have turned down other television appearances, but this one certainly showcased her as the beautiful diva she was.
Yeah. The only part about this that is kind of, it's not a letdown. I mean, it is what it is. But the fact that they mention Fred Astaire throughout, and you're going, what it would have been to have both of them on here together. It would have been delightful. But
yeah, that was a letdown. I went into this cold and I didn't know what was going to come of it. And when they mentioned Fred Astaire, my assumption was he's going to show up at any time.
Yes.
Right until the very end when he says, "Here's my double." I was expecting, Fred Astaire to come out and.
But no. I would agree with that. But again, you look at it from the comedy aspect and you go, oh, for Jack to sort of subbing in for Fred Astaire sort of thing it makes it funny.
It's great. Jack he looked like he was having such a good time.
Yes.
The smile on his face when he's dancing, it was great. I don't know if that was just performance of smile, but he looked like he was having a very good time, and I hope so.
Well, and whenever we see Jack he's done dance numbers in other episodes and other specials and everything. Whenever I see that, I always enjoy that. I mean, I know so much of it isn't Jack, and so much of it is, Jack's doing the close-ups and the dancing is someone else, of course, but it's still fun even to know that, and even to see Jack attempt anything like this is so far out of his wheelhouse that it's great. Terry, what were your thoughts on this one?
Well, first I want to say how much I enjoyed this episode, with lots of caveats.
Okay.
One of the reasons I like this is because I am a fan of the old Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire movies.
Yes.
When people talk about them, it seems like they were around forever together.
Yes.
They only made 10 pictures between 1933 and 39. So it was a lot of movies in a relatively short period of time. But it wasn't like they were around together for decades.
Right.
And then they did one more reunion. Those were all black and white films. They did a Technicolor picture in 1949. And that was it. And so part of the premise of this Jack Benny episode is that they hadn't been seen together in a while, which was true.
Yeah.
So they were going to bring them. There was going to be a reunion of the two of them. And I, as with you all, I was looking forward to seeing Fred Astaire. Now, that being the case, the premise of this episode, the joke in this episode, is that Fred Astaire doesn't show up. That's why it's funny. Jack substitutes for Fred Astaire. And then it becomes kind of a one joke show.
Yes.
That's my criticism of it. It's great. The production numbers are great and the comedy is terrific, but it's really a one joke show.
Right.
The thing that this episode made me think of was that episode with, and I guess there were two of them, with Edgar Bergen and his wife, Frances.
Mm-hmm.
And so we kept expecting, when it was just Jack Benny and Frances Bergen, we were waiting for Edgar to show up. And it pays off. He shows up. That doesn't happen here. We don't get to see Fred Astaire at all. And I did some reading about this. I tried to find out what Fred Astaire was doing. He was still making movies, and he was very much busier than she was.
Right.
No, you're right. Her career had really, set up, but the two didn't really like each other. So
yeah. I mean, they're mixed stories, and to his dying day, he denied that they were feuding.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I wasn't there, and I just don't have enough evidence one way or the other.
Was quite a diva. So
yeah, but it's a very entertaining show. I'm glad we're doing this after people get a chance to see the episode, because I would hate to discourage anybody from watching it.
Right.
It's worth watching, and it's really well produced. You have to say, if nothing else, about Jack Benny, and there's so much else to say about him, he was a pretty fine dancer.
Yeah.
I mean, he has some of the more extreme stuff where he's throwing her up in the air. I mean, they had doubles for both of them for that. But the rest of it, I mean, he really was kind of twinkle toes. And after all the years that she'd been a dancer, of course she still had great skills. But don't expect, if you're stupid enough to be listening to our conversation before seeing the episode, don't not watch the episode, because it was really worthwhile. But also don't expect this to be, the best Jack Benny TV show ever. It certainly wasn't that.
No, and that's the other part that to me indicates it's like the later Jack Benny episodes in some ways, in that it doesn't always work. It's sort of parts of it work and parts of it doesn't work, and things. It is Jack Benny's shows are somewhat by design a mixed bag, and both in quality and every other way. The other thing that I enjoy about the way Jack does things, and I get how you would benefit from this, and until we started doing these podcasts and Kathy started bringing up when they were actually filmed versus when they're released, is he would have so many in the can, right, that he could do the live shows, and if somehow a live show didn't work, or he couldn't get the guest he wanted to get, when he could drop in one of these canned shows that they had ready to go. And so it would seem like it would give him a lot more flexibility for doing the live shows and everything.
I agree. I'm not sure how happy he was doing live shows, and those had come with a lot of tension. You got to make it all work right. You can, it's one thing to keep a radio cast working correctly. There's so many moving parts to live television, and it's really interesting that we're getting live episodes this late, because television historians like to say the golden age of live TV was earlier in the decade. And we foolishly say that, oh no, by 1957, all shows are pre-recorded. And that's CBS is demanding he do some number of live shows because it's
Hmm.
still carrying a bit of prestige. The idea of a must-see TV, you've got to show up and be there. So you're right. It's convenient that I'm sure he was much happier being able to mix the two. But as I said, he's not. It's not entirely his own decision. My guess is that, as I said, the network wants some things, but on the other hand, they're also learning about the benefits of syndication packages. What they had learned from Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz was, that if you only have live episodes, these kinescopes don't look very good.
No.
And you get but if you can take the time and start recording them, now you've got them to play over and over again. And so it's just, to me, it's a very interesting time of transition and experimentation. That early TV has been one thing, but the TV we know of in the 60s is a slightly different thing. And this is sort of interesting in between as they're going, well, we've done this. What do we do now?
Well, and that's why I think it's so interesting as we've started to present these chronologically instead of jumping around, because you get to see, oh, okay, so Jack, I wouldn't have known that he didn't do a live 3 weeks in a row and then 3 filmed ones or 2 filmed ones, but really he didn't do that, which makes complete sense that he would like do a live and then drop a filmed one so he has time to prepare for the next live one or whatever. And because that's a lot. I mean, you're essentially doing like a stage play or something once a week or once every few weeks or whatever, that it becomes, I would think it'd be a lot. And
I wonder if what you all are discussing was the premise for why they wrote this episode. The premise of the episode is that they need a script. It's kind of a weird premise that they're looking through other people's scripts.
But the fact that somewhere they claim they've got this big pile of scripts when we know that the writers
of course
in that part.
Of course. I do want to point out one other person in this episode who I was so happy to see. The guy who plays the producer, Joe, is an actor named Russ Conway. Conway, excuse me, who had done hundreds of television episodes over the years, and he was a very recognizable face from TV. I don't remember all the shows he did, but he did literally hundreds, 200 or 300
lots of
shows.
guest appearances and things on lots
exactly right. And it was just it was if you needed somebody in that role to support this concept of the guy who's going to tell Jack you need another script, he was the perfect person for it, perfect actor for it.
And I assume he was usually in more dramatic shows than
almost exclusively.
Yeah,
did very little comedy. Yeah.
Well, and even in this part, he really doesn't do comedy. He's the straight guy. At least.
Right. That's why he was perfect for this.
Yeah.
And how interesting that I was really struck by who is this? I mean, the producer character. Now, Jack has never had, you've got Malin Merrick in the background doing the music, and you've got the evil sponsor up here. But Jack's show, all the way from early radio, had not really had this character of a producer. And it's kind of, what would that have been like? Would it have been friendly and working with, which, or how would conflict have, worked out between the two? So,
Kathy, I wonder if Irving Fine played that role over the years. The sort of behind the scenes puppet master, not puppet master, but
But I think
Kathy's
Kathy's also referring to
his
having a character on the actual show as the producer, right? So that because that would have been an interesting character they could have done throughout, or like on
let alone
show, his sponsor becomes a main character played by who is he played by? The guy that played Mr. Mooney on the Lucille Ball show.
Gale Gordon.
Gale Gordon. He plays that character on
which another model could. The actual title producer of these shows was Hilliard Marks.
Exactly.
And you can imagine what if the Hilliard character.
Well, I love on Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld was on Jimmy Fallon's Tonight Show probably a few years ago now, I'm not sure. But he was really pushing hard against Fallon, and Fallon was doing the political line and can't say this, but he's like, okay, at the end of your show, there's a list of credits that go by, and they say all these 12 people are executive producers. There are 7, 8 people on that list that do nothing, absolutely nothing on it, have nothing to do with this episode whatsoever, and they're up there, and you know it, and I know it, that's what happened. And Jimmy's like, well, it depends. And he's like, he looks so uncomfortable because he's drawing back the curtain. It's like, yeah, because you see all these executive producers on so many shows, and you're like, okay, do all those guys really sit down on a week-to-week basis and do something on the show? And no, they're just
It's
there
interesting
name
because
only,
Jack,
and they get a check, I would assume.
yeah, Jack creates a sort of like mythology or like a fake version of how episodes are made, but it's not totally consistent, you know, especially if you go through the years. Like he'll start and have like these people do this role and stuff like that, but yeah, it makes me wonder how things actually worked behind the scenes, who actually did what. And you know, and it changed so often, it's hard to keep track of that. That's one thing I thought that was interesting about this episode, was that, like Terry is saying, it's kind of like a peel behind the curtain. The idea of like, oh, we want to do a live show and it's going to take this many, you know, rehearsals, and then let's look through all these scripts. And it makes you wonder, is that how they were done, or is this just for the dramatic effect? And I have no idea.
Well, they always say you write about what you know, and so that could they could say, oh, that actually would make a decent script of just sort of what we do. And
yeah,
the Carl Reiner model for the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Yeah.
But I could see them going through not scripts that were written and presented to Jack, but old scripts that they've already done, and going through those scripts like that and saying, well, what would be good to redo and
yeah.
But
they
I did
had
think
to
it
have
was
done that. I mean, on both the radio show and the television show. They recycled so much.
Oh yes.
And I've always wondered, you know, do those other original writers get any kind of benefit from that? But I don't think so. I think on Jack's show, I think what he did was he paid the writers really well, and they became what do they call that? Something for hire.
Work for hire.
Work for hire. And so I own everything that's done on my show or
you're
whatever.
Right. Harry Cohn eventually sued Jack of saying you don't give, I don't get anything for residuals. I don't get anything for the continuing characters I created. Jack said, no, it's all mine. And that's also because they lived their lives when the characters called Jack Benny, the characters called Mary Livingston. You know, it's very complicated. But somebody, writer Ben Schwartz, convinced me that were the program done today, that the writers would have a continuing big piece.
Oh yeah, yeah. This wouldn't be allowed today. He couldn't do it the way he's.
Thanks to the Writers Guild.
Yeah.
Right. And it could partially be because of Jack's show. I mean, you don't know because he treated his writers well, but you have to also pay them the residuals and everything over there. Yeah, you can't just pay them up front and go, okay, now I own everything. It doesn't work that way. So anyway, anything else to cover in this one? Let's talk about her, Ginger Rogers, with this. She just did. I thought a really nice job, and I thought her acting was better than I maybe would have thought it would have been. I mean, she's known for her dancing. She's not known too much for acting.
Well, she actually was at the time. Back in the day, she made just as many, very few sort of romantic melodramas, but some of those too, but a fair amount of comedies. So she didn't dance many times other than with Fred Astaire. But you're right. But she was, you know, in the same cruel way that Hollywood ages out its actresses yet today. Yeah. She's part of that whole generation of 30s actresses that are having trouble finding roles by the 50s. Like your Claudette Colbert's, your Myrna Loy's. What I believe Ginger turned to was live performance. national touring shows, stuff in Vegas, singing and dancing and acting and stuff like that. So, because Hollywood had no more use for her, and she just decided not to go the, I would say lower herself to every, to a weekly TV show kind of thing.
Oh,
well, and I think that's, I mean, this points out a problem that's gone throughout Hollywood history, really, is you get the leading man, the leading lady he's with her in a few films, and then it's like, oh, she's getting too old, let's pull her, keep him going, but now he'll have a younger partner again. And they do that, and then the woman is, oh, now what do I do, or what do, as an actress, what do I do? And then there's, every once in a while there's exceptions, or someone who's made it be an exception, usually, where you've got your Meryl Streeps or something like that, who can keep on getting parts, and they're writing parts specifically for her and things. But there's so many that are these wonderful actresses that just sort of, after they're, once they get to be 45, 50, they're kind of done, unless they're gonna slip into doing supporting roles and that sort of thing, instead of the main character, where we know that the male counterparts can be leads in their 60s, 70s, whatever, and they'll make it be. And sometimes it's awkward. You've got your 70-year-old Fred Astaire or something with a 35-year-old dancer.
Sid Charisse, or who, the little French actors from American in Paris. Leslie Caron.
I don't know who that is.
Leslie Caron.
Okay.
But John, you were
a similar thing is true with child actors too, or teenage actors. I'm thinking of Mickey Rooney, who's like the biggest star in the world, and at a certain point, he's not really working as this kid. So he tries a couple character actor things, and then he can't really get anything, and he becomes very bitter in his old age, apparently. And so that's interesting. I was watching some Ginger Rogers, Fred Astaire movies this year, and I'd like to watch a lot more. I've got one of those collections on DVDs, but they're just delightful. Like, with the stories, and they're sort of, the relationship between Ginger and Fred, it's, what to expect, and it's fun.
Yeah.
And the musical numbers are really impressive, like amazing. So it was interesting to see how she would be here in the 50s. And she, in some ways, I feel like she doesn't even look the same. She looks more like, because she's got like the 50s makeup, like she looks like Lucille Ball more than Ginger Rogers.
Yes.
So
I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
Here's a fun fact: the connection between those marvelous Astaire and Rogers musicals and Jack Benny is their director, Mark Sandrich. Mark was a guy in his early 30s who really made he'd done So This Is Harris, the musical short with Phil Harris, and then he made the Rogers Astaire couple. He made those films so fabulous, and about the time they were aging out of them, Paramount hired Sandrich. Precisely, they said, turn Jack Benny into a movie star. And so he ended up doing Man About Town and Buck Benny Rides Again, and then what's the other one? Love Thy Neighbor. But so that's this connection that Sandrich really thought about ways of highlighting performers and music together into story. And at least in Man About Town and Buck Benny Rides Again, he really succeeded. When he got tired of Jack Benny, he moved to Bing Crosby musicals. And he was doing great stuff with Bing Crosby, and unfortunately he died very early. He had a heart attack in 1945. So there, a fun fact. There is a connection between.
I was wondering why Jack stopped working with him, because he was gone. He was dead. So
I was interested. I mean, I was disappointed that Fred Astaire didn't show up, but when they show the silhouette and they turn the light on and it's Jack Benny, it was just so funny. And the way that, like, he is an expert at mugging to the camera. So when he goes, he does a bit of dancing, but for the most part, it's like twirl and mug. And when he does this, Fred Astaire looks, and it's just, oh, that's so funny. I feel like this is the kind of episode that I wouldn't say ages well, but sort of over time, in your mind, gets better and better. It's the kind of thing where you might talk about it at the cooler the next day, and somebody who hadn't seen it will be like, "What? That's amazing!" Because conceptually,
Yes.
it's so funny. And when you go back and you think about this episode, we're gonna forget about some of the stuff that didn't really work, but what's really gonna stick out in our mind is those moments that really worked, and the concept, the idea that Jack Benny is playing Fred Astaire, so that that's one of the things I think that's great about Jack Benny, especially in the days where they didn't have the same kind of reruns that they have now. You couldn't get it on DVD and watch it over and over again. So it's sort of like it's all in your memory, and you sort of like build it up a little bit, and you tell people about it. Oh, I wish you had seen this episode of Jack Benny where he's playing Fred Astaire. It was so funny, and watching it for the first time, I am kind of thinking, oh, it's too bad Fred Astaire's not there. But when you go back and you think about it, you think, oh, what a great idea. So yeah.
Well, also, I think for modern audiences catching it, you're always going to see the title of the episode before you watch it. And the title is the Ginger Rogers episode or whatever. If Fred Astaire was in there, it'd say the Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire episode or whatever. Even if he was featured to a lesser extent, he'd have his name in there somewhere. So I never was really thinking he was going to be I was hoping that he was going to show up, at least like John was saying, right at the
like
end.
A cameo.
A little cameo thing. But no, but I was thinking, but as an original audience member that is waiting for this show to be on, you would think, oh, Ginger Rogers, I wonder if Fred Astaire is going to be in there. And I think it would pique your curiosity, and you'd be thinking that maybe he will show up. And so I think for the original audience, the letdown might have been even more than for all of us.
Well, that's great. Even carried out to that curtain ender when it says, "Let me introduce you to my stunt double, to my dancing partner." I love that fact that it was Jack, because when does Jack ever, give himself that much? It's usually putting himself down.
Yeah.
And I just thought that little bit, and then he did his little delighted, trick of his legs was great.
That trick works really well. You could never do that on a live episode, but to cut between him and a double, and everyone knows it's a double, but that just makes it even funnier, to the point where it gets ridiculous, where he's like carrying her over his head with one hand or whatever it was. It was very funny.
Well, it's just one step removed from being a cartoon, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But that's
do you all happen to know whether there has been a biopic or a documentary about the life of Ginger Rogers? Because she had an amazing, dramatic, difficult life.
No, I don't believe so. So
yeah, you would think there would be. Yeah. Well, the other thing I was thinking,
in part, that's because her politics were very conservative, or her mother was quite the McCarthyite. I believe associated with it. So it might be that people who'd want to make such things go, oh, maybe I won't. I don't know. But she had a very interesting life and quite a range of films. In Stage Door, a dramatic role opposite Katharine Hepburn. She's great. And then Gold Diggers in 1933, We're in the Money, sung in Big Land.
Oh, yes. Classic.
Well, one thing that this also brings up, just our discussion here, that I never really put together before in my head, but how there was something about film in the 30s, 40s, and certain it's almost like television, pre-television in some ways, and what you get in that like Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers, like John was saying, when they were together, you knew what you were going to get. You knew that this is going to be similar. It's kind of like the Road Pictures, where you know they may have characters with different names, various things, but they what you're going to sit down and get, you're not terribly going to be surprised, and you know it, and you don't want to be. It's comfort food, it's whatever you want to call it. And then the other ones that strike me that same way are the Andy Hardy, not Andy Hardy, but Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland, whenever they're together. Oh, let's put on a show, and my buddy's got a barn, we can use this barn, and it's the same essential thing over and over again, but people apparently love that and loved coming back and experiencing that. I don't know.
Not to yak too much, but you're right. It was a deliberate move on Hollywood's part. They sold their stars under contract in genre films, and the stars had to make 5 and 6 films a year.
Right.
So you had a Clark Gable film, you had a Greta Garbo film, you had a Norma Shearer film, you had a Joan Crawford film. And you're right, they would be, to keep the stars coherent, many of them played similar parts all the time with different names.
Yeah.
There were some series like The Thin Man, as you say, the Andy Hardy were kind of cheap A's, but extremely profitable for MGM. So there were ways in which this is great. But after World War II, as the attendance starts dropping, they go more for individual films. Production was less studio based and more production unit based. So
well, and when you're churning out that many
absolutely
pictures,
right.
they can't all be Gone with the Winds and Wizard of Oz and so forth. I mean, you got to have some filler in there somewhere, and so that's how they did their
There
filler.
were 700 A and B films every year that Hollywood had to spit out. You can only do so many things.
On the other hand, it was either Betty Davis or Katharine Hepburn. Somebody was I was watching an interview talking about the studio system and extolling the virtues of it. You got to work a lot. You got to improve your craft a lot. Whereas now, if you're making 1 or 2 pictures a year, when do you get to practice? When do you get to get better? And everything is under the microscope, and it's either succeed or fail. And
or
there's no farm system for the movies.
A marvel here. You're right, and I think that streaming has sort of taken that up without so there's room for some experimentation.
Yes.
But streaming really wants series instead of one-off films.
Yes.
So maybe there's possibilities.
Yeah, there's certainly some one-off films that they do on streaming now that where you get a big enough. I mean, when they have so many actors that are huge. I mean, you're The Rock and so forth. They're not going to be necessarily in a series, but they will be in a movie for Netflix or whatever that they create.
Yeah, you can get some big actors in small films on streaming.
Yeah. Well, and over, I think it's Peacock now that has some of them that I'm like, oh my gosh. So this is like the list of people in them are like, Kevin Hart and it'll be Denzel Washington. It'll be like just a lot of huge actors, and it won't be a film. It will actually be a series, but it could be a series where some of them are only in like 1 episode, or they're in a few scenes in every episode. I saw one where they're like partner cops, and I think one was Denzel Washington and I can't remember who the other big actor, but they were huge actors, and it was like, okay, so but the amount that they showed them was it was almost like little comic relief to have them in their little 2-minute piece, and then the rest of the film was featuring the other cop partners, or they just bump into them as they be coming into the cop headquarter thing, and they would joke around with each other, and that's the only scene they'd be seeing in the whole thing. Whereas when you see the preview or whatever, you're thinking, oh, they're going to be featured. How they feature so many actors, but they don't. It's like,
but it's in that way, it is similar to the old Hollywood system. People getting steady work, and that series are better for streaming than individual movies to keep us coming back. You're paying a monthly fee month after month after month. So it's interesting.
Yeah, agreed. Well, anything else on this one? Terry, you got anything else to throw out there? Anybody else? We're good. Okay.
The only thing I would say is I love to see Rochester. It was fun to see a live parrot for Polly the Parrot. And I think sometimes because Rochester is in so many episodes, we take him for granted, and we talk about the things that we don't get to see so often. But it's always fun to see Rochester in a scene or two.
I was just thinking the exact same thing right before you said that. I was like, well, we didn't talk about Rochester, and then I'm glad you mentioned that, because he's so fabulous, and he and Jack together, every scene is you can see why, of all the radio characters, they kept him and Jack together, because he brings out a piece of Jack that you don't get and no other actor, no other person that Jack worked with does that same thing for Jack. I'd say Mary in the same way, sort of, you get a different, yet another side of Jack that Mary brings out that no one else can bring out. Not, I don't care who he has as a guest female or whatever, they never quite, Giselle is close to what she, but even that's a giddy Jack she brings out. Whereas Mary brings out this other Jack that's always having to defend himself against Mary, and Mary, really can let the air out of his sails, and their work together is brilliant. And I love, the live show she's not in, and I think that could be a frustration to Jack too, as Kathy's saying, did he really want to do the live shows, knowing one that, okay, there's another episode I'm not going to get Mary in, and the only thing I'm going to get Mary in is the film ones, so let's do more filmed ones. But it looks like Kathy had something to say on that.
Oh, I was just gonna comment that Jack's relationship with Ginger Rogers, the actress, unlike, let's say, Irene Dunn, or so many other Hollywood actresses in the narratives, really look down on Jack, and are punching down at him. Although Ginger has this whole scene of the party she's throwing that she doesn't want to let him know he's not invited to. It's not like what the Colemans would say. It's like, of course, I'm not going to invite Jack. So no, I appreciated a little flexibility here.
And that's why I love these discussions, because that you just brought something up to me. So often the actors he's with, right, are actors, are big name actors and things like Ginger Rogers. So they're, as you say, they're kind of punching down at Jack, keeping Jack down. Jack's lesser than they are. With Mary, it's different, because Mary is not a actor like these folks. She's actually, if anything, she's an underling to Jack, or not, she's definitely not an even person. She's someone important in his life or whatever. So she's kind of punching up and bringing Jack down. So it's a different feel to it. And that's why no one else can get it, because when he's with someone else, it's usually a bigger star, and they can't, they don't have that position.
She can be meaner without it seeming, mean.
What?
She can be meaner to Jack without it seeming like cruel.
Yes. Because they have to be careful with the folks that are above him pushing his down, because you don't want them to seem cruel. You just want them to seem dismissive and so forth. A different feel for it.
Oh, that is
with her, she can really poke him, get him, and you forgive it, because it's not somebody being above him being cruel to him. It's somebody below him going, "Oh, come on, you're not that big of a thing,"
Yeah, and that in real life they love each other.
Yeah, for sure. So it just works, and that's what I've enjoyed so much about these recent seasons we've had, the recent episodes, is so many of them do have Mary, and I love Mary with Jack. I mean, this whole season, this is probably the biggest season with Mary, because this season, though, I'm sort of playing them out of order, so you guys aren't seeing these and their episodes we've done intros to before. But this is the season that has all of the trip episodes where Mary and Jack go to Paris, go to England, go to Spain, go to Italy. They're all over the place, and just seeing those are so enjoyable, because just seeing those two together. And what's so unique about those specific episodes, unlike anything else in Jack's whole 15-year canon, is that it's just the two of them. It's like you usually get the two of them mixed in with Frank Nelson, mixed in with Mel Blanc, but it's the two of them plus actors that are from whatever country they're in or whatever. I mean, there might be one big Maurice Chevalier or something in there, but you don't get the pure Jack and Mary relationship so often in the rest of the series, but in that you do. So I love those. Anyway, we'll let it go at that. I hope folks really enjoyed the episode. I was going to say, what was we were talking about the $64,000 question episode on the previous one. This one, and so I was going to bring you a piece of that, but in this one, I don't think I have to bring anything else in here. I think we'll just enjoy the Ginger Rogers episode in and of itself. So, but we should stay tuned. We'll probably have a trailer for our next episode. We've been doing that lately, and that's a lot of fun. So
Great.
See you folks next time, everybody. Thanks, everybody. Wow. Now for something very special. Kathy, what do we have now?
We've got a trailer for our upcoming episode.
Wow. John, do you like trailers?
Ooh, do I?
All right, let's see it.
Mr. Benny's picking me up and we're going out to 20th Century Fox. The movie studio? Yes, you see, last week they decided to make the picture all about the life story of Jack Benny.
Gosh, Miss Livingston, imagine. Big studio like that. I'll bet Mr. Benny is really proud.
Proud? Well, let's say that he's taking it just the way I thought he would. He's, what's the word?
Unbearable?
That's it.
Good morning, Rochester.
Good morning, boys.
Is my breakfast ready?
It's in the kitchen. I've been keeping it warm.
Splendid. Splendid. By the way, Rochester, I want to compliment you the way you prepared my bath. The fragrance was delightful, and the bubbles seemed to be quite lively.
Thank goodness I finally found the right formula. I've tried hard water, salt water, cool water, hot water, all kinds of water, trying to keep those bubbles bubbling.
Now, what'd you use today?
Schweppes.
Good, good. Now, will you bring me my breakfast, please?
Yes. Would you like to look at the paper?
Oh, yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Rochester.
Will you take off those glasses, or shall I turn on the lights?
Wonder if there's anything in here about the studio making the story of my life. Nothing here, the front page. Nothing in this column. Nothing in this column. Oh, here it is. After years of success in other fields of show business, Jack Benny will soon be celebrating his triumphal return to the silver screen. This epic will not only be based on the story of his life, but his brilliant career in... What am I reading this for? This is the ad I took out. Really like that. They had to put it in the used car section.